Hi, I'm Jeanette Roche. This is Bridge City News. Here are some of the top stories we've been following today.
A ceasefire between the U.S. and Iran is on shaky ground as Iran vows to protect its nuclear and missile capabilities. Plus, Calgary police investigate after 2 children are found dead in a vehicle in the northwest part of the city. And drama unfolds at an Alberta independence meeting when police show up to serve them legal papers from Elections Alberta.
Your nation, your province, your southern Alberta. From the heart of Lethbridge, it's Bridge City News with Jeanette Roche.
Thanks so much for joining us. Some strong words today from Iran's supreme leader. Ayatollah Mojtaba Khamenei says the Islamic Republic will protect its nuclear and missile capabilities as a national asset, likely seeking to draw a hard line as U.S. President Donald Trump attempts a wider deal to cement the shaky ceasefire now holding in the war. We get more from Associated Press reporter John Gambrell in Dubai.
Now, this speech coming on Persian Gulf Day in Iran was read by a state television anchor, and it comes as it appears the supreme leader is trying to draw a pretty hard line on what he is willing to negotiate over as U.S. President Donald Trump tries to get one grand deal to both reopen the Strait of Hormuz, the narrow mouth of the Persian Gulf that's been shut off since the war began back on February 28th, as well as negotiate over Iran's nuclear program, its arsenal of ballistic missiles, as well as its support of proxies in the wider Middle East. We also heard Khamenei say through the state television anchor that he believed the only place that Americans belonged in the Middle East, in the Persian Gulf, was actually at the bottom of its waters. That's a direct threat, and that's likely not going to go over well with President Trump. He has been on social media over recent days insisting that Iran is falling apart, insisting that its oil pipelines were going to start exploding, and that it faced other challenges as the U.S. Navy continues its blockade of Iranian ships, turning them back around.
2 Canadian activists are among 175 people detained by Israel after 22 flotilla vessels headed for Gaza were intercepted in international waters overnight near Greece. Activists on the convoy of boats are seeking to break Israel's naval blockade of Gaza, calling Israel's actions, quote, a dangerous and unprecedented escalation. It's not the first time Israel has intercepted vessels and detained people on the same mission, both times drawing international condemnation. Israel's foreign ministry says early action was required in accordance with international law. One of the flotilla organizers from Montreal is calling on the Canadian government to have a spine, quote unquote, and take action to ensure the detained Canadians are returned home safely. Global Affairs Canada did not immediately respond to a request for comment. Back here at home, Calgary police are investigating the tragic discovery of 2 dead children inside a vehicle. Just after 10 a.m. Thursday morning, police received a phone call that led them to the 4300 block of 14th Street Northwest.
Once we arrived, we located a vehicle. A search of that vehicle has located 2 deceased children. At this time, the deaths are considered suspicious. Our homicide unit is investigating and has taken over the investigation. Currently, we have 1 individual in custody. We do not believe there's a risk to public safety. Obviously, because this is a homicide investigation, there's only limited details that I can say at this time. Our homicide unit will be briefing later once we actually get the investigation ongoing.
Smith says police are trying to determine the children's identities, locate potential witnesses, and anyone who may have any involvement or knowledge of the incident. A bit of drama unfolded last night in Edmonton when at least 8 police cars showed up at a meeting of a group of Alberta's independent supporters. Police were reportedly there to serve papers for Elections Alberta, who is accusing the advocacy group of illegally using or sharing what's called the list of electors. The list contains the personal information about Albertans, including names, addresses, and phone numbers. Under provincial law, only political parties, members of the legislature, Prospective candidates and constituency associations are supposed to have access. Elections Alberta is now confirming that it is investigating the Centurion Project, which is a group advocating Alberta separating from Canada. Here's a breakdown of the timeline of events of this week. On Monday, Elections Alberta says it learned that the group may be in possession of the list of electors. On Tuesday, the agency wrote to the group saying if it was accessing the list, it was to cease and desist. On Wednesday, the help of Edmonton police representatives from Election Alberta attended its Centurion Project meeting in Edmonton to ensure the cease and desist letter was received. Elections Alberta has since gone to court and been granted an injunction preventing any further access to or use of the list of electors. It also requires the group to identify any person or entity that had access to the list or provided copies of the list. Elections Alberta says it's working with law enforcement and the Office of the Privacy Commissioner of Alberta to determine if additional action is required. Meantime, Marty Bellinger, who had been speaking at the event during the police presence, was quoted saying in the Western Standard that these lists are made public and that Canada Post even rents these lists out. In other provincial news, Alberta's Premier Danielle Smith is in Europe on a 10-day trade mission to visit Germany, Sweden, and the United Kingdom. Thursday at Chatham House in London, Smith talked about energy and trade and upcoming talks around the Canada-US-Mexico Trade Agreement, or CUSMA. Smith says historically, this trilateral agreement has looked like something else.
When you look at the trade flows, they almost look like two bilateral trade agreements, because Canada and the U.S. have about $1 trillion between them. Mexico and the U.S. have about $1 trillion between them, and there's very little trade between Mexico and Canada. So I did a trade mission to Mexico, and we just said, is there some way that we can change this relationship? And so they sent a delegation up to learn a little bit more about how we do oil and gas development, how we're using geothermal, how some of our drilling techniques, whether there might be an opportunity for us to export LNG directly to Mexico from our new LNG facilities coming off the West Coast. And so I think that what you'll see is that there's going to be more opportunity for us to do direct trade. In Alberta as well, one of our premier railway companies, Canadian Pacific, merged with Kansas City, and now you have CPKC that can go all the way from Alberta all the way down to Mexico. And we're beginning to see how that additional transport line is increasing trade.
The Premier says with 3 different leaders at the table than the last time the deal was negotiated, she's hopeful for a positive renewal of that relationship. And speaking of trade, Prime Minister Mark Carney is downplaying efforts by Conservative MPs who are traveling to Washington to hear from White House officials about Canada-U.S. trade negotiations. The MPs are in the U.S. Capitol to hear from Trade Representative Jamieson Greer.
It has not been our experience that people have gone to Washington and have learned anything new, nor has it been that they have learned everything that is either being discussed on the table or where the negotiations are. In the end, there's one negotiator for Canada, and that is the Government of Canada. Our interlocutors in the United States are generous people. They're generous with their time, and it's good of them to meet a host of Canadians coming down. But in the end, they know and we know that we're the negotiators.
Jamil Javani is the Conservative MP leading this group. He's a friend of U.S. Vice President J.D. Vance. The event was hosted by the American Chamber of Commerce in Canada. In local news, a fire ban is now in effect across the city of Lethbridge's River Valley and in Lethbridge County. Officials are responding to elevated wildfire risks driven by warm temperatures, dry conditions, and low humidity. City authorities are urging residents and visitors to exercise heightened caution, avoid all open flames, and properly extinguish smoking materials.
And I understand people get frustrated, like you said, on, off, and it's just a matter of the risk. And we try as hard as we can. We don't want to leave the fire ban on all year, because we do like people being able to go down to the river valley. Unfortunately, this might be on for a while, but things always change. For those people that could be walking down there smoking, don't just throw your cigarette butt on the ground. If you have water with you, use a little bit of water to pour on it. Make sure it is completely out. I'm starting to see again already, driving up and down Scenic, of people throwing cigarette butts out their windows. It's such a big risk. So it's all areas of the river valley. So once you go down there, whether it's around the country club, continuing north through Indian Battle Park, up into Pavan Park, this also includes the campground on the west side of the river. So you can't go down there and have a wood fire. You can't take a charcoal barbecue, a smoker, anything like that in the river valley and do it. If you do have a propane cooker, you can take that down to the river valley and still utilize one of the areas on a park bench or on a picnic table and cook. You turn the propane on. When you're done cooking, you turn it off, clean up your mess, and leave. Just to reiterate, this fire ban is river valley only. It is not for backyards. You can still cook in your backyard. You can still have fire pits. Make sure you're following the fire pit bylaw.
In other news, the Lethbridge Trade and Convention Centre will become a hotbed of technology and science this weekend. Now in its third year, the High-Level Innovation Conference will provide visitors a one-of-a-kind experience in the world of technology, esports, innovation, and tourism, with a variety of scheduled events, including an esports tournament, demos of new technologies, and a continuous set list of speakers. The organizers at High Level are positioning this weekend as a fundamental experience for the growing gaming and tech industry in southern Alberta.
It's actually a booming area, in terms of industry. We see a lot more game development studios spurring up here locally. That's part of why we're bringing this together, to be able to showcase some of the great work. They're publishing titles, they're creating jobs. We also have a number of innovators through the Regional Innovation Network of Southern Alberta, through organizations like BIPOC Foundation, that want to share their stories. They want to, have the opportunity to connect with the community and to bring their innovations to light. The event has continued to evolve over the last few years. And this year we're welcoming again 35 sessions with over 50 speakers. And we have a variety of exhibitors, interactive exhibits, and a whole ton planned across the 2.5 days of the conference.
The High-Level Innovation Conference runs this Friday and Saturday at the Trade and Convention Centre. Visitors under 18 will also get in free with registration. A group of some very insightful students at Our Lady of the Assumption School have been researching topics of global significance and presented a showcase of their findings on Thursday. Last year, OLA was named an International Baccalaureate Primary Years Program School. This means students enhance their learning of the standard curriculum with themes of inquiry and critical thinking. Grade 6 students spent 2 months researching a topic of importance to them, whether socially, environmentally, or globally.
I think having a real-world audience is incredibly powerful for them. We always do a lot of presenting to our schools and our parents and things, but having the community come in and interact with them, ask them questions, that really shows to them that it's not just about the act, like the process is very important, the process of learning, but it's that they really do have that power to make a difference.
I originally started out with a group of 3. We did natural disasters, but I feel like air pollution was just more interesting. It had more of it just felt more relevant. I really wanted to inspire people to take action against air pollution. It's really a big harm to people who have breathing problems, such as asthma. It feels really good, everybody coming up asking me questions and me being able to answer them.
Really, all of our ideas just combined, and we found that gender equality was such a big problem in the world, and we really wanted to spread awareness to show that we can change it and make the world a better place. We found a lot about gender stereotypes and how those work and how those can affect rights and opportunities in society. It's really exciting since we've been working on this for weeks and months, and it's been a hard process, and everyone's been struggling a lot, and it's really nerve-wracking and exciting to be here, because we finally get to present it and show everyone our ideas and show how big a change maybe us grade 6 students can make.
Some very astute youngsters there.
Sean Haney here with realagriculture.com. In every canola meeting across the prairies this past spring, the conversation eventually turns to one topic: the massive scale of renewable diesel market. As I recently explored on realagriculture.com, the industry is moving past the climate policy label of renewable diesel and looking at the cold, hard numbers of demand diversification. Now, since 2021, Canada's domestic canola oil consumption has surged by 60%, and this is driven almost entirely by biofuel production. We're witnessing a structural shift where 3/4 of the Canadian canola crop could be crushed right here at home on the prairies. Even with the new Strathcona facility alone in Alberta, it's set to pull 2 million metric tons of seed for that renewable diesel facility. This is like changing the reliance on such a volatile export market like China. It's finally being balanced by a steady North American energy demand, domestic consumption. As Dean Roberts of Sask Oilseeds points out, the shift to renewable diesel, which is a direct drop in for winter weather, is adding an estimated 62 cents a bushel to the farm gate. For the Saskatchewan producer, and really across the prairies, it's about having more buyers at the table and ensuring the 26 crop is fueling a more predictable, value-added future. For Bridge City News, I'm Sean Haney with Real Agriculture.
Alberta and Ontario lead Canada's growing solar farm sector. One concern of solar farms is the amount of land that's needed, land that could be used for agricultural purposes, be it grain or animals. Well, a solar company is testing how cattle and solar panels can better coexist at a small farm in central Tennessee. Researchers are looking into what the potential benefits might be for farmers, the energy industry, and the land.
This facility is a roughly 5 megawatt solar facility, currently hosting 10 mama cows and their calves, and meant to be a testing ground so that this type of technology and this practice can be deployed more widely over time.
Solar is one of the most powerful tools we have for cutting emissions. And for a long time, the conversation has been, okay, but the trade-off is that it requires all of this additional land. But I think we're starting to see enough research that when you do it well, the land use can be more of an opportunity than a downside.
We're studying the long-term impacts. One of those is that it retains soil moisture for plants. That could mean things like we need less irrigation or we are more drought tolerant in this kind of a system with the presence of the solar panels. In terms of animal health, there's reduced heat stress when the animals have free access to shade. There's also decreased water consumption. There are more win-wins than trade-offs on a co-located site like this.
Cattle are just a lot more ubiquitous in agricultural communities. It's something people relate to more. For farmers who are looking to get involved in agrivoltaics, it's more approachable. And there's a real opportunity to improve land and a forage base and soil over time that will pay dividends to the landowner once the solar is decommissioned, and whether that's 20 years, 40 years, or 80 years from now.
Statistics Canada says the economy grew for a fourth straight month in February, though there were signs that momentum was fading toward the end of the first quarter. The agency said today that a 0.2% increase in real domestic product for February was led by a 1.8% gain. In the manufacturing sector, which marked its fastest pace of growth in more than 3 years, the machinery subsector led growth in the month, followed by gains from transportation equipment manufacturing. Several auto assembly plants in Ontario were ramping back up in February after shutting down for retooling and maintenance in the previous month. And now here's a look at today's markets.
The TSX was up 645 to 33,964. The Dow was up 790 to 49,652. The S&P 500 was up 73 to 7,209, and the Nasdaq was up 9 to 24,673. West Texas Intermediate oil was down $1.47 to $105.41 US per barrel. Natural gas was up 11 cents to $2.75 US. Gold was up 54.38 to $4,640 US an ounce, and silver is up 2.43 to $73.74 US an ounce. Feed wheat is at $8.63 per bushel, barley is at $7.01, canola is at $17.34, and corn is at $7.75 per bushel. Live cattle were up 160 to $258.47. Feeder cattle were up 147 to $373.75. Lean hogs are down 165 to $93.45 for the May contract. And the Canadian dollar was down over the past 24 hours and sits at $73.60 US.
Recapping one of today's top stories, 2 children have been found dead in a vehicle in northwest Calgary. Police say both children are believed to be under the age of 10 and a man is in custody. Investigators are still working to identify the children. The man was arrested near the vehicle after officers responded to the scene this morning. A legal battle is brewing as Elections Alberta launched allegations of illegal use of the list of electors against an Alberta independence advocacy group called the Centurion Project. Calgary Bureau Chief of the Western Standard, Dave Naylor, will give us the scoop on this and other issues. That interview coming up next. Also, when you see news happening in your community, be sure to send us an email at info@bridgecitynews.ca. You can also visit our website or YouTube channel anytime to check out more of our content and our poll testing questions.